17-year-old Alana Carter stepped through the mahogany doors of Harvard's Sanders Theater. 3 judges were already placing bets on how quickly she'd embarrass herself. One whispered to another, "These outreach programs really are doing their job." Another smirked, "Let's hope this one at least has pitch." What they didn't know was that Alana had been preparing for this moment her entire life, and that someone had already decided she wouldn't get the chance to prove it. And before we dive deeper, if you believe in talent that doesn't come from privilege, but from grit, pain, and purpose, hit the like button and help this story get seen. These voices matter, and your support makes sure they're not buried. The morning light streamed through stained glass windows like judgment itself, illuminating an audition room that looked more like a cathedral than a performance space. This was Harvard's Advanced Vocal Performance Program audition, the kind of opportunity that launched opera careers and created legends, or destroyed dreams before they could take flight. Alana clutched her vintage leather satchel, a gift from her grandmother, and tried not to stare at the other candidates. Designer gowns, professional hair and makeup, instrument cases that probably cost more than her family's monthly rent. These weren't just teenagers auditioning for college. They were the products of private coaches, European conservatories, and generational wealth. Then she saw her, Sophie Wellington. Alana's stomach dropped. Of all the audition rooms in all the Ivy League schools, Sophie had to be here. The same Sophie who had made her junior year at Boston Arts Academy a living hell. "Did Juilliard run out of slots?" Sophie whispered to her friend, but her voice carried just enough for Alana to hear, deliberately. She was talking to her friend, but her eyes were locked on Alana with the same malicious intent she'd perfected in high school. "She'll probably sing gospel or something inappropriate," her friend replied, both of them glancing pointedly at Alana. Sophie looked Alana up and down with the kind of casual cruelty that came from never having to worry about consequences. "I mean, it's nice that Harvard is being inclusive, but this is a serious program." She paused, her smile turning razor-sharp. "Some people just don't know when they're out of their league." The words hit Alana like a physical blow. She was 16 again, standing in the Boston Arts Academy auditorium after winning the regional competition, watching Sophie's face twist with rage and disbelief. Sophie had been the golden girl, the one everyone expected to win, the one with the trust fund and the connections. When Alana's name was called instead, Sophie had whispered to anyone who would listen that it was political correctness and diversity quotas. But it hadn't stopped there. For the rest of junior year, Sophie had made sure Alana knew she didn't belong, spreading rumors about her scholarship status, accidentally bumping into her in hallways, making snide comments about her clothes, her background, her limited repertoire. The worst part was how Sophie did it all with a smile, maintaining perfect plausible deniability. As Alana found an empty chair in the corner, away from the clusters of candidates who clearly knew each other from elite prep schools, something felt wrong beyond the obvious hostility. The registration assistant had mispronounced her name 3 times during check-in, her eyes darting nervously away each time. When Alana tried to make conversation, the woman had practically flinched. Something was off. The accompanist had looked at her submitted music and muttered, "You sure this is your key? Seems high for—" He hadn't finished the sentence, but she knew what he meant. 20 minutes earlier, in the administrative office, a conversation was taking place that would change everything. "Mrs. Wellington, I understand your concerns about the diversity of this year's candidates," the program coordinator said quietly into her phone. "Yes, I'm aware of your family's generous contributions to the music department." "We just need her to disqualify herself," came the crisp voice through the phone. "Let her be impulsive. You know how these types can be when they're under pressure. Specifically, I need you to understand that Alana Carter cannot be allowed to succeed here. Sophie has told me about their history at Boston Arts Academy. That girl humiliated my daughter once before, and I won't allow it to happen again. Not at Harvard. I understand the Carter girl beat Sophie at regionals. Beat her? She destroyed her. Sophie had been preparing for that competition for 2 years. The judges gave it to that girl for political reasons, and now she thinks she can waltz into Harvard and do it again. This is about maintaining standards, not social engineering. The coordinator glanced at a security monitor showing Alana in the waiting room. I'm sure we can ensure the audition process maintains its traditional excellence. We'll be reviewing everything carefully afterward, naturally. Good. Sophie has worked too hard to be overshadowed by some scholarship student again. Do what needs to be done. Back in the audition room, Alana opened her folder and reviewed her piece one more time. Caro mio ben, a classic Giordani aria that her vocal coach had helped her perfect through countless YouTube tutorials and late-night practice sessions in her grandmother's kitchen. But as she read, a memory crashed over her like a wave. Age 12, Mount Olive Baptist Church, Sunday service. Alana, sit down. This is not the time for showing off, Elder Johnson hissed as she added classical runs to the hymn. The congregation had started clapping, swaying, but he pulled her off the stage mid-song. Outside, her grandmother's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Your gift don't come with chains, baby. They scared 'cause it sounds like freedom. But Mama, he said I was being disrespectful. Child, some folks get nervous when they hear God speaking through someone who don't look like their idea of holy. That's their problem, not yours. Then at age 16, Boston Arts Academy Regional Competition. The moment that changed everything. Sophie Wellington had been the favorite. 3 years of private coaching, perfect technique, family connections to the judges. When her name wasn't called as the winner, her face had gone white with shock. And first place goes to Alana Carter. The applause was thunderous, but Alana could only focus on Sophie's expression. Pure hatred mixed with disbelief. Later, in the bathroom, she overheard Sophie on the phone with her mother. It's not fair. She didn't even go to the right schools. It's all politics, Mom. They had to give it to her because she's, it wasn't about talent. From that day forward, Sophie had made her life miserable. Every chance she got, she'd remind Alana that she was an outsider, that she didn't belong, that her success was illegitimate. The memory faded as a stern-looking woman in her 50s addressed the room. Judge Morrison had the kind of authority that came from decades of crushing dreams with surgical precision. She adjusted her wire-rimmed glasses, a gesture she made whenever she was about to deliver devastating news, and spoke with calculated coldness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Harvard's Advanced Vocal Performance Auditions. You will each perform one classical piece, Verdi, Mozart, Schubert, or similar caliber. No modern pieces, no improvisation. Technique and precision are paramount. Judge Morrison's eyes swept the room, lingering on Alana with barely concealed distaste. Her glasses caught the light as she adjusted them again. The same gesture, the same dismissive authority. Your submitted sheet music has been reviewed and approved. Any deviation from your registered selection will result in immediate disqualification. Alana nodded, double-checking her folder. Everything was in order. She had followed every rule, submitted every form, practiced until her throat was raw. This was her one shot, the full scholarship that would change everything. But as the auditions began, the pattern became clear. Each candidate delivered technically flawless performances that sounded like they had been rehearsed with expensive coaches for months. Perfect diction, perfect breath control, perfect emotional detachment. Adequate technique. Next. Acceptable. Next. The judges barely looked up from their scoring sheets until Sophie Wellington approached the stage. Sophie Wellington moved with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her place in the world, until Alana had shattered that confidence 2 years ago. Designer dress, professionally styled hair, the kind of poise that came from generations of assuming doors would open. Sophie Wellington, performing Puccini's O mio babbino caro. Her performance was polished, controlled, and calculated. Every note hit precisely where it should, every gesture rehearsed to perfection. The judges sat forward, engaged for the first time all day. But there was something desperate in her perfection, a need to prove herself that hadn't been there before Boston Arts Academy. Excellent, Miss Wellington. Truly exceptional. We'll see you in the second round. Sophie curtsied with practiced grace, her eyes finding Alana's briefly with a look of triumph. As she returned to her seat, she whispered to her friend, just loud enough for others to hear, "Well, that's how it's done. I wonder if everyone will maintain that standard." The implication was clear. This was how it was done. This was the standard. This was what belonging looked like, and this time, Sophie wasn't going to let anyone take it away from her. "Alana Carter, you're next." The words hit her like ice water. Alana's hands trembled as she stood, her legs feeling like they might give out beneath her. She walked toward the stage area, each step feeling like she was walking toward her execution. She opened her folder to review her sheet music one final time. Her heart stopped. This wasn't her music. Instead of Caro Mio Ben, she was holding sheet music for a contemporary pop song, an automatic disqualification. Someone had switched her carefully prepared classical piece with something that would get her thrown out before she could sing a single note. The paper felt foreign in her hands, like evidence of a crime. Her vision blurred. No. This can't be happening. She looked up toward the judges' table, then back at the wrong music, then up again. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The silence stretched, and she could feel everyone's eyes on her. Do I walk? Do I sing? Will they ever let me belong? Her chest tightened. She could feel her grandmother's cross necklace against her skin, suddenly too heavy, too hot. The room seemed to tilt. She gripped the edge of the music stand to steady herself. Another memory crashed over her. Age 14, her first regional classical vocal competition. A white girl had forgotten her lyrics mid-performance. The judges encouraged her. "Take your time, dear." We all have nerves. When Alana hit one minor note slightly flat, the head judge had said, "I'm sorry, but classical music requires a certain refinement. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable with contemporary styles." But then came age 16, and everything changed. The Boston Arts Academy regional competition, where she beat Sophie Wellington, the golden girl who had never lost anything in her life. The moment that turned Sophie from dismissive to vindictive. The words had followed her home from both competitions, whispered in her ear every time she practiced. Unsuitable for European forms. You don't belong here. It was just politics. Her breathing grew shallow. She could feel her pulse in her throat, could hear the blood rushing in her ears. The room was spinning now, and she thought she might actually pass out right there on stage. They set me up. They actually set me up. She looked toward the wings, where Sophie stood with her friends, and saw something that made her stomach drop further. Sophie wasn't even trying to hide her satisfaction. She was watching Alana fall apart with the same cold pleasure she'd shown at Boston Arts Academy. A tiny voice in her head whispered, "Just walk away. Save yourself the humiliation." But then another voice, her grandmother's voice, cut through the panic. Your gift don't come with chains, baby. Miss Carter, you're on in 30 seconds, the stage manager announced impatiently. Alana's voice cracked when she tried to speak. But this isn't... Someone switched. The words came out as barely a whisper. I don't know about that. You either perform or forfeit. She looked again at the sheet music, then at Sophie, then at the judges. Judge Morrison was adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses again, that same dismissive gesture, tapping her pen impatiently. Judge Chen was checking his watch. Only Professor Caldwell, the lone black judge on the panel, was leaning forward with what might have been concern. His eyes met hers across the room, and she saw something there, not pity, but recognition, like he knew exactly what was happening and had seen it happen before. He gave her the slightest nod. Not permission, not encouragement, just acknowledgement. Like he was saying, I see you. I know what this is. The piano accompanist looked at the sheet music with confusion. I don't know this arrangement. You'll need to sing a cappella. Judge Morrison adjusted her glasses one more time, her voice sharp with annoyance. This is not open mic night, Miss Carter. Either perform your registered piece or step down. From the back of the room, a maintenance worker who had been quietly emptying trash cans stopped what he was doing. He was an older black man, probably in his 60s, and he had turned to watch what was happening. He didn't say anything, but his presence felt like a quiet witness to whatever was about to unfold. Standing there with the wrong music in her hands, Alana felt the weight of every voice that had ever told her she didn't belong. But she also felt something else. The memory of her grandmother's kitchen, the smell of cornbread baking, the sound of humming that had filled that space with more love than any concert hall. 3 months old, her grandmother's arms, humming a wordless melody that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than memory. Age 7, standing on a kitchen chair, learning to harmonize with the radio while her grandmother cooked Sunday dinner. Age 10, her grandmother teaching her that same spiritual she was about to sing, explaining that it had been passed down through generations of women who couldn't read music but could feel truth. This song wasn't written down nowhere, baby. It was written in hearts, in the cotton fields where your great-great-grandmother picked until her hands bled, in the kitchens where your great-grandmother hummed while she cooked for families that wouldn't let her eat at their table, in the nursing homes where your great-aunts sang to comfort people who wouldn't acknowledge her humanity during the day. The melody had traveled through women who had found strength in harmony when the world offered them nothing but discord. Women who had sung their truth into spaces that weren't ready to hear it. Some songs don't need permission, baby. They just need to be sung. Alana closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made her choice. She opened her eyes and looked directly at the judges. I'll sing something else. Judge Morrison's glasses flashed as she adjusted them yet again. That's not how this works. Then I'll make it work, Alana said. The stage lights shifted slightly as if the room itself leaned in to listen, and without waiting for approval, she began. The room went dead silent. Even Sophie's smirk faltered. Professor Caldwell gestured slightly, giving her permission to continue. Alana stepped to center stage with no piano accompaniment, no sheet music, no safety net except her voice and her truth. She looked out at the room full of people who had already decided she didn't belong, and she felt something shift inside her chest. My great-grandmother couldn't read music, she said, her voice steady now, but she could read pain, and she could read hope. This song traveled from the cotton fields to the kitchen table to this stage. It wasn't written down. It was written in hearts. She paused, her hand touching the cross necklace at her throat. This isn't just a song. It's how my great-grandmother survived. how my grandmother made peace when the world tried to break her, and how I'm not asking permission anymore. She took a breath and announced, "This is Voices That Stayed." She began to sing, and the room transformed. The melody was simple but profound, not opera, but a spiritual that had been passed down through generations of women who had found strength and harmony when the world offered them nothing but discord. Her voice started soft, almost fragile, but grew stronger with each word. When they try to make you small, remember who you are. As she sang, the memory came flooding back. Standing on a kitchen chair at age 10, her grandmother's hands guiding her through the melody, while grease popped in the background and the smell of cornbread filled the air. Some voices can't be caged, baby girl. Some songs are bigger than the rooms they're sung in. When they say you don't belong, let your voice be the star. The judges stopped writing notes. The other candidates stopped whispering. Even Sophie's friends were staring, their phones forgotten in their hands. I am more than what you see, more than your assumptions of me. The maintenance worker in the back had stopped emptying trash entirely. He was standing completely still, his eyes closed, and Alana could see his lips moving silently. He knew this song, too. I am voice, I am song, I am free. Her voice soared now, filling every corner of the room with a truth that was too big to contain. This wasn't just performance, it was prayer. It was protest. It was the sound of every woman who had ever been told to sing smaller. They may laugh when I walk on stage, but they'll remember when I walk away. Judge Morrison had stopped pretending to take notes. Her wire-rimmed glasses were fogged with tears. Tears she didn't seem to notice. Her hands completely still. 'Cause some voices can't be caged, and some songs are here to stay. The final note hung in the air like a challenge, like a promise, like a prayer answered. And then nothing. For 3 long seconds, the room held its breath, waiting to decide if they'd heard brilliance or blasphemy. The silence was profound, not the polite pause before applause, but the stunned quiet of people who had just witnessed something they hadn't expected and couldn't easily categorize. Then, from the back of the room, the maintenance worker whispered, "Hmm." It was barely audible, but it broke the spell. If this moment hit you, if it reminded you of someone who fought to be heard, share this with them. Because when one voice rises, it gives others permission to rise too. A single clap followed, then another, then the whole room erupted. After the other candidates had left, Professor Caldwell approached Alana in the hallway. "Miss Carter, I need to speak with you privately." In his office, surrounded by photographs of famous graduates and awards from prestigious institutions, he didn't immediately speak. Instead, he looked at her with the kind of recognition that comes from shared experience. "I used to be a jazz pianist," he said finally, "before I became an academic. Played in clubs in Chicago, Detroit, New York. Had a gift, people said. But when I auditioned for conservatories," he shook his head, "they told me I had natural rhythm, but lacked classical discipline. Code words, you understand." Alana nodded. She understood perfectly. "I learned to play their game, learned to speak their language, got my doctorate, got tenure, got respectability, but I never forgot what it felt like to be told my music wasn't legitimate." He leaned forward. "I've been waiting 20 years to hear someone walk into this room and sing their truth without apologizing for it." He paused, studying her face. "We'd like to offer you a place in our program. Full scholarship, housing included." Alana felt her knees go weak. "I don't understand. I didn't follow the rules. I didn't even sing the right kind of music. Professor Caldwell's voice was quiet but firm, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of decades of watching talent be dismissed for the wrong reasons. You sang exactly the right kind of music. You sang the kind that changes rooms, the kind that changes people, the kind that reminds us why we fell in love with music in the first place. He turned toward the door, where Judge Morrison could be seen in the hallway, still shaken from what she'd witnessed. She was listening for pitch. I was listening for purpose. He stood up, extending his hand. Welcome to Harvard, Miss Carter. Try not to let them tame you. As she left his office, Alana passed Sophie in the hallway. The other girl was on her phone, her voice tight with panic. Mom, I don't understand. How did she get in? I thought you said... Sophie noticed Alana and quickly ended the call, her face flushing with fury and something else. Fear. Congratulations, Sophie said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. That was unexpected. Alana studied her face, seeing the same desperate fury she'd witnessed 2 years ago, but now mixed with something new. The dawning realization that her family's power had limits. You still can't accept that I earned it, can you? Sophie's composure cracked. You think one little performance changes anything? My family has been supporting this program for 3 generations. You'll never truly belong in our world. Maybe not, Alana said quietly. But I'm not trying to belong to your world anymore. I'm making my own. 3 months later, security footage would reveal that the sheet music switch hadn't been an accident. An administrative assistant, acting on instructions from a major donor, had deliberately sabotaged Alana's audition. The scandal would rock Harvard's music department and lead to major reforms in their audition process. But by then, Alana Carter had already changed everything. She didn't just win a place in the program. She carved space for every girl they never meant to see. Because some voices can't be caged, and some songs are here to stay. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe and help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Every new voice in this community helps make sure the next